Hello, hello. I'm Mayor Watt. That's my site. ohmTown.com is a news aggregation site that throws everything into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. I tend towards merging 3 main concepts together, 3 main sectors, really: business, technology, and society. And in that triad, that's the perspective that I come at these articles that I go over in the ohmTown Daily News Show, currently streaming at twitch.tv/ohmTown at 11 p.m. Eastern. I'm noodling around with this hour, but I'm probably going to be moving it to the day, somewhere around this summer. So be prepared for another shift. I've been doing work during the day, and it's been pushing me further into kind of running late, running ragged, trying to get this done. And so I decided that I wasn't going to do it. And I moved it to 11 p.m. So we'll be doing that until summer. At any rate, it's always going to be streamed over at YouTube. It's always going to be streamed as a podcast as well. So you can pick it up over at Spotify. You can pick it up at Google Podcasts. You can pick it up at Apple Podcasts as well. The site doesn't host it. ohmTown.com doesn't have it posted within its framework. But that's really largely because there are so many other avenues to pick it up, including here on Twitch. If you do pick it up elsewhere and you haven't watched on Twitch, come over to Twitch and follow me. I need that bar to keep on moving up. It's been idle for a little bit. I'm not really hyping it up on other people's channels. So feel free to go over to Twitch and sign up. And if you're in my chat right now, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. In fact, interesting. Okay, so let's get into today's articles. I already have selected 20 or so. This very first article is How to Watch the Boys, Amazon's dark comic adaptation is back for season 2. If you've never seen season 1, it was a pretty amazing in terms of kind of the commercialized anti-hero. Not even an anti-hero. I mean, these guys, I don't know. Let's just say they have baggage, and it's super powered baggage. Season 2 of The Boys premiered on Amazon Prime Video on September 4th. And new episodes will be added every Friday until October 9th. This article here. It's over at businessinsider.com, written by Kevin Webb. Let me check something real quick. Sorry, just got to check something. Yeah, they're on season 3, not season 2. So, and that's supposed to start on June 3rd. So there's something hinky about this article. As you know, I don't read the articles prior to the stream, but this article must have been updated in some way for my aggregator to grab it. But at any rate, season 3 starts June 3rd, 2022. And season 2 and season 1 were pretty spectacular, and you should go and check them out. You'll have to subscribe to Prime, but it is what it is. At any rate, let's continue on. The next article is New Analysis Details Masterclass in War Profiteering by U.S. Oil Giants. This article kind of piqued my curiosity because I've been talking about the fact that I think that these high prices are stemming from uh, oil and gas companies profiteering off of pretty much any disaster. Um, I think you could pretty much blow bubbles in a warm bathwater, and somebody's going to try and uh, raise the price of gasoline. And this article here is over at commondreams.org, which I'll preface the fact that, yes, I believe that their titles and the content tends to be, um, I don't know how to describe it really. I wish I could say that it doesn't come across as being, um, I can't, I don't want to call it hostile or angry, or it's, it's hyperbolic. I mean, a master class in war profiteering is really inflating things, but you have to uh, maybe look at it from a different perspective. If you don't agree with what they say in the article, you have to listen to this voice, because it's really odd that we've been going through 2 years worth of pandemic, and suddenly, because there is a conflict in a region that doesn't really impact much in U.S. oil and gas, um, our prices for everything is skyrocketing. Suddenly, now that the doors are opening back up to capitalism, suddenly prices are shooting through the roof. And to me, that just screams profiteering. Now, war profiteering, that's another matter. Yeah, there are going to be companies that can do that. And it will fall under war profiteering only because there is a conflict somewhere on the planet that involves oil and gas. Now, other countries are a little bit more embroiled in this, but let's click this link. I'll take you over to um, Common Dreams. So I'll have to think about how I can frame these articles. This article is written by Jessica Corbett for commondreams.org. And again, it's titled New Analysis Details Master Class in War Profiteering by U.S. Oil Giants. And this article has a lead that says oil and gas companies are feeding off humanitarian disaster and consumer suffering in order to reward Wall Street, said Lucas Ross at Friends of the Earth. Like when I read a research paper, I look at who is funding it, to see if they are going to call out their financial bias in their own research. And that tends not to happen in the research papers that I read. But it's certainly apparent when you read the tone of a research paper that's been funded by pretty much anybody, that yeah, there's some bias in the results. And there is in articles that you read, but it's a bias about awareness. You cannot look at this and go, okay, there's conflict somewhere, so let's jack up the prices, without having to lean into the idea that whoever is making these decisions to raise prices during suffering is sociopathic. It's just absolutely the antithesis of being a human being with compassion and empathy and sympathy for the human condition, to jack prices up to the point where people are priced out of owning a vehicle or driving a car to work, and during a pandemic being told by work that you have to show up, even if your job doesn't require you to show up. You can do your job at home, for instance, and they still tell you that you have to show up. Um, Meanwhile, you're paying over $5 a gallon for gas. Now, this article is going to go into talking about it. It says the new report from Bailout Watch, Friends of the Earth, and Public Citizen explains that there are two main tactics that fossil fuel giants use to benefit investors. First, they repurchase shares of their own stock and retire them, reducing the number of shares outstanding and driving up the value of each share remaining in investors' hands. Everybody does this. If they're a publicly traded company, they will buy back if they can. Why? Because it reduces how many outstanding shares are controlling the company, and that increases the capability of owning the company wholesale more and more and more. Plus, they can release it again, if so be it, and generate revenue. Second, they increase dividends, the quarterly payments investors receive for owning shares. The report continues. Oil and gas dividends, historically bigger than other sectors, have spiked in recent months, outstripping every other industry group. Yes, and that's another thing. They will basically kick out dividends to keep people invested in the company. And those dividends go back into buying more shares of the company, and that stock price will go up. These two things aren't really the concern of mine. Neither one of these two things really are the concern of mine. My problem is that, and I've said this in previous episodes, the last two, is how do you get record profits when you have record high raw material costs, fewer people are utilizing it, and you're raising the price at the pump, and you have inflation? Well, none of that really equates to how you can possibly have record profits unless, here's the kicker, unless the costs to you, your margin, is not reducing because of the increased costs. So you're not only are you raising your retail price, but you're not losing anything in the margin, and you're raising the retail price higher than the losses to the increased raw materials costs. That's the only way you can have record profits during inflation and what will end up being a recession. People aren't using more fuel. So how are you getting record profits if both ends are just going up in price? It should be stagnant, but that's not what's happening. Well, go over to Common Dreams and read this article. The next article is Josh Brolin stars in Outer Range, a new Western with a sci-fi twist, and here's how to watch the show on Amazon Prime. I have not watched this yet, but anything having to do with sci-fi, I am all over it, so I'll end up watching it. But it says here, Outer Range is a new sci-fi Western, premiere April 15th on Amazon Prime Video. The series stars Josh Brolin as a rancher embroiled in a supernatural mystery. And you can get a standalone Prime subscription for $9 a month. By the way, Prime is now $139. A massive increase in its cost came maybe a month ago. Again, inflation, costs for gas are causing it. That's everything that at the beginning of the last 105 episodes that I've done. So it's been 105 days since I started this. And looking back at what I've been doing, both outside of the stream and everything in ohmTown, I went looking at layer after layer of the onion as to why prices are increasing, and everything points to oil. Not oil, I'm sorry, gas. Gas itself, not oil. Oil fluctuates, but gas prices are increasing. And I think it's because now that basically the whole retail market is opening back up again, and people are returning to work, and people are going out again, they see an opportunity to recapture the last 24 months worth of constrained revenue. Yet in 2021, record profits. 2022 will be even better. So this article is over at Business Insider, and it's written by Angela Tricorico. Pardon me for the delay in reading that message, that last name. I'm not sure why that seems so hard to me to read, but anyway, it's a BusinessInsider.com article about Outer Range. And so what is it? Sci-fi Western, Josh Brolin involved in a supernatural mystery when a drifter arrives in town. And I don't want to share too much, but oh, and there it is. Yeah, like I said, I say periodically, I don't read these articles prior. I just know something about it. So it says here Amazon Prime Video is included in a standard subscription to Amazon Prime, which costs $15 a month or $139 a year. If you're not doing it and you're a student, then you can get a discounted rate. I think it might be $99 now. That one I've forgotten because it's been so long since I've been using student benefits from Prime. Okay, well, let's continue on. Maybe I'll watch that tonight before I fall asleep. I'll be up until 2 or 3. Let's continue on. The next article is over in the Mobile channel. A team behind discovery of planet with 3 stars retracts their article. The other day, I was going to actually make some comment about this, but then for whatever reason, I kind of said, well, let's wait and see. I didn't know if anything was going to come of it or not. I was going to actually look into it in some other way, not from my aggregator. And well, when I saw this, I was like, well, that's interesting. So an international team of researchers who published a paper in the journal Science in 2016 describing their discovery of an exoplanet with 3 stars has now retracted the paper. So this is a phys.org article written by Bob Yirka, or Irka, Yirka, who's with phys.org, the site itself. And it says here in their original paper, the team described their work with direct imaging technology to study the triple star system HD 131399. They spotted what they believed to be an exoplanet approximately 4 times the size of Jupiter. They also noted its apparent odd orbital system. The planet appeared to orbit just one of the stars while the other 2 stars were farther away. So subsequent to publishing the paper in 2017, another international team of researchers found evidence suggesting that the planet was not a planet after all. The data observed the year before they claimed was from a background object, perhaps a dwarf star. So, yeah, I mean, that's, to me, it seems feasible, but I'm not an astrophysicist. What can I say? The next article, I'll continue on. The next article is in the Daily News Show. And it says here, Biden is pushing for a Tom Paine tax plan. Over 2 centuries ago, Tom Paine urged our new republic to tax extreme wealth. This tax season, President Biden is picking up that call. We'll click the link. It takes us over to commondreams.org. And like I just said, perhaps you should challenge your preconceived notions about the opinion on certain things. Like, it's easy to verify facts and discount wildly off base statements. I won't even go into it, but this is more about opinion and perception and impact, and not necessarily just patent crazy. This article is over at commondreams.org, written by Sam Bizagati. And it says here, in particular, Paine believed that a wealth tax on grand private fortunes could prevent the emergence of an anti-democratic elite. this tax season, over 2 centuries later, we may finally have a president who's taking pain to heart. In its new budget proposal, the Biden administration is calling for a new billionaire minimum income tax. The White House isn't calling this proposal a wealth tax, but we should. That's the article's quote there, not me making that final statement. And for all intents, I believe it should be possible to tax billionaires. And let me explain why. The richest person right now on Earth, apparently, and at least in the United States, everybody says that he's the richest, Elon Musk, is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Now, I just want to lean into this a little bit. Sure, intelligent guy, capable guy. But the reason why he's made his money is because of a combination of not having to ever worry about money. And one time when he did have to worry about money, suddenly there's a NASA contract worth over somewhere around $1.4 billion for SpaceX. And from there, his wealth blossomed. But it was public money that made this possible. Now I think that it should be given back. The benefit should not be purely born personal. It was public money that made this happen. Will the public benefit from rockets flying off into space? Sure, to some degree. But right now, there's billions of dollars of wealth tied into a select few. And that wealth has always been generational familial wealth. And it's born from exploiting the people around them. Right? Somebody making $400 million a year is paying somebody $15 an hour because somehow we've all agreed that $15 is adequate, even though it takes half an hour to pay for a tank of gas. Actually, strike that. Depending on the size of the gas tank, it takes 2 hours to fill up a tank of gas before inflation kicked in. And now a 10-gallon tank is $50. So getting to and from work for a week and a half really is dependent on your ability to get a job close to home, because you're not going to be able to drive for very long when it costs $50 to fill up your tank. And you're driving something that only has a 20 miles to the gallon. Again, that is an efficiency thing that science and technology has been able to evolve, yet we're still marginally getting better gas mileage. It's all outlandish, and it makes you start thinking about conspiracy, but it's not conspiracy, it's greed. It's opportunistic. So I'm just going to have to continue because it's too late for this. The next article, but it'll be in the podcast and in the YouTube channel, so you can watch it there. And follow the links, please. It goes through ohmTown, and you go over to the actual news source. But at any rate, this next article is The Word in Tech. It's in the Word in Tech channel. And the title is How Our Flag Means Death's Creator Made a Period Romance Disguised as a Pirate Comedy. If you have not seen Our Flag Means Death, you need to look it up. Hey, how are you? Timeless. Whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing in here? Wow, hey, nice to see you. So definitely no conspiracy. We see the extremes here in Africa, where the rich are almost a law unto themselves. Yes, absolutely. And the people with power and influence tend to benefit themselves, right? And under the guise of altruistic donations and gift giving periodically, which does nothing but lower their taxable income, everybody swoons about the benefits. Yet, um, for the most part, it's taking from society and rarely giving back, to the grand scale that they are taking from society. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a capitalist. I believe that a person should be able to, strike the price on their product or service as they see fit, and even uh, price people out. But at some point, it becomes an issue of society accepting it, right? So here in the States, there were people that were taking medication that used to be 10 cents a dose and jacking it up 30,000%, and making it impossible for people who were going to die if they didn't take the medicine. They would go into debt, or they wouldn't be able to take the medicine and they would skip it, right? So almost, you know, driving coffin nails every day uh, into a self-made coffin simply because they couldn't afford it anymore, because there was somebody with a business sense that was sociopathic. And I bring that up a lot because I think there is a lot of sociopathy on the planet right now. And they were literally kicking the prices up to the point where nobody could afford it. But they were making enough money personally that they didn't care. Again, sociopathy. But at any rate, good to see you. Every once in a while, my streams get really serious, but I try to avoid being too serious. But if you've never seen this, I don't know if you get this show. It's on HBO. Um, Hopefully, you can get this, or find a way to get access to it. I think that you would love this show. Our Flag Means Death, and it's a true story about um, a rich male landowner, um, who has a midlife crisis and becomes a real pirate. So it's really difficult for me to talk more about it, um, without kind of ruining it. Um, but if you were to read the Wikipedia about this guy right here, Stead Bonnet, you would actually see the show goes through the Wikipedia. Um, but he gave up his family and his kids and bought a boat and paid his crew a wage. And no kidding, he actually went out and decided to be a pirate. So it's really interesting. Just for the record, this article is over at theverge.com, and it's written by Charles Pulliam Moore. Oh, no, timeless, you're fine. Um, yeah, my old job had me seeing a lot of examples where wealth causes an actual disparity in how people are treated by government. Yep. Yeah. And that happens here too. I think it happens pretty much anywhere. There are places where I've been, both traveling and living, where depending on how much money you had, your tickets were different value, right? It was a ratio of your income, of your wealth. Um, or it was quite the opposite, where because you were wealthy enough and known enough, nobody would write you a ticket. They would treat you with deference and just let you walk, as opposed to me, who I would get pulled over for a burnt out taillight, and they wouldn't just say, "Hey, go fix it." They would actually give me a ticket that is punitive, right? I'd have to pay for the light, I'd have to pay for the ticket and the time to either fight the ticket or to get it written off or whatever. So it's just really interesting that people tend to give the wealthy so much more credence than everybody else. And I think it's because people want to be rich, and so they're not going to rock the boat. They're not going to sit there and say, "Oh, well, just because you have money doesn't mean that you're right." In fact, I've heard people actually say in discussion, Well, they're millionaires, so they must be doing something right without looking back at the history. And so, I do look back at the history because the context actually matters. How did a person get their wealth? For instance, Elon Musk is in the media now to a great extent because he's trying to buy Twitter and the other things that he has done. But when you look at his history, he's always had somebody else supporting him, right? So when he was young, apparently he was paying people with emeralds because his family had wealth in emerald mines. And as far as I recall, he's from South Africa. Um, and and he pivoted a person who he ended up starting a company called Zip2. And he had an angel investor that went with him. That angel investor ended up being a billionaire, but was wealthy already and kicked in money on all of Elon Musk's projects, businesses. And a lot of people say, well, Elon Musk, he's a billionaire. He started PayPal. That's where he got his wealth. Well, no, that's not what happened. He actually bought his way into the CEO position because he was the CEO of a competing business called X.com that got acquired by the company. I think it was called Confirmity or something like that. They merged together and created PayPal, and he wasn't the CEO. He It was somebody else. Um, and then he parlayed PayPal into another company, and then he parlayed that into SpaceX and the Boring Company and Tesla. And here's the kicker about Tesla: he literally he purchased the CEO position by buying the stock, just like Twitter. If you go and look at the history of Tesla, he did not start or found or in any way, shape, or form create Tesla. He bought it. And it's really fascinating that people say that he's the founder of Tesla and he's not. Um, so anyway, well, see, and the reason why I did, I look into this with pretty much everybody, where people are hero worshiping somebody without any context. And they typically do it with the wealthy and famous. But when you look into the history, when you look into the past, um, the context of this is what really matters. Um, you may do great things, but trying to be the hero to people for your great deeds and then saying you can be just like me is an outright fabrication. It's a lie. You can't be like Elon Musk because Elon Musk was paying people with emeralds that he had in his pocket because he had so much laying around at his disposal. According to an article, at least one article that I read. Um, uh, so no, it's almost impossible to be a billionaire without familial wealth, generational wealth. Um, and so there's a whole lot more to this. Um, but sorry, I got sidetracked. But this show is hilarious. And let me just get back into the like I said in my very, very first episode, and I don't really talk about it that much, but I tend to have this thing called associative thinking where we end up going down a rabbit hole and then ending up back at the original discussion. And so in this case, I'm talking about Elon Musk, and the possibility of becoming Elon Musk. And really what we should be talking about is this funny pirate comedy. But check this pirate comedy out. So I'll get back on to the track and we'll keep moving forward. So the next article, and I'm happy to talk about other things. No, don't even worry about any digressions. It is the nature of being on Twitch and doing live shows, and I'm cool with it. Absolutely. Um, Plus, depending on the nature of the digression, it's a little more humorous than the serious news that I tend to talk about. And I try to put a humorous tilt on it, but sometimes it's really hard to do that, particularly when it's just myself. I don't have a co-host, uh, and I've actually been on many of my episodes saying, if you are interested, not you in particular, but if you are interested in hosting or co-hosting a show that's part of the 50 that I've got planned as I scroll across the menu of ohmTown.com, each one of these I intend to bring as a 1 hour at least show to Twitch and the podcast network that I hope to bring to make a part of ohmTown. So it is what it is, and for the most part, the streams where it's just one person with no massive audience tends to be a little drier. So at least that's what I've seen over the years that I've been watching people stream. At any rate, this next article is over in the Mobile channel, and its title is Twitter expected to employ poison pill to counter Elon Musk takeover. It says the company appears intent on trying to fend off the billionaire's bid to buy it in a deal that could be worth more than $40 billion. In fact, it's closer to 43. But it really depends on what the investors say. I'm not sure if my login is going to remain here. So let's see. Oh, okay. So it says on Friday it turned to a tried and tested corporate defense mechanism invented in the 1980s. Hi, Plague Pals. How are you? Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Thank you for coming. I appreciate the follow, by the way. Loved the show. I need to swing by when you're doing more shows. If you've never gone over to Plague Pals, go over to Plague Pals. They are, it was a blast to watch everybody playing. It's, yeah, not a problem. And glad I could help out a little. It's a little bit, but I do it in other ways as well. So this here, it's invented in the 1980s, the heyday of corporate raiders. So even today, there are still corporate raiders. Corporate raiders will go over and take over a company and then chop it up into bits and sell it off, or consolidate it in some way and then integrate it into something else. But essentially, gutting the potential of a particular company in the hopes that you can utilize it for something else at a more effective way in another company. But you can take it over entirely. And it's interesting that this attempted takeover by Elon Musk is the same type of thing that happened with Tesla, because he actually bought his way onto the board of Tesla and then became the de facto owner of Tesla. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, oh, and the weird thing about Twitch is that even though, like, I see people sometimes come in, but only if they chat. Because what's listed in my chat and the number and stuff like that, that's displayed to the host, is different. And I never had to deal with that. And it makes me question everything that's going on. So I feel a little weird when somebody pops up out of nowhere, and it's not listed anywhere until I either go in and manually refresh or something like that. So come on, Twitch. So this here is the mechanism known as a poison pill has a simple intention to make it less palatable for a potential buyer to pursue the target company if the buyer accumulates shares above a certain threshold. In Twitter's case, if Mr. Musk bought more than 15% of the company, Twitter would flood the market with new stock that all shareholders except Mr. Musk could buy at a discounted price. So if you didn't read any of the filings, basically Musk offered a price that had a premium, but it was based on a January price, January valuation. And so they could flood the market and with more shares, and then all of these other investors would get it. But to me, this is nothing to Musk. He could pay cash right now. Well, he would have to liquidate some investments, but he can generate that, and he could go to investment firms and go right to the table with $45 billion and say, I'm buying Twitter. The only problem with that is it would have to be approved. And I don't think anybody would stay in Twitter if Elon Musk took it over, because this takeover is under the guise of being about freedom of speech, when pretty much everybody can say whatever they want to on Twitter with impunity. The only time that you can't is when you show up on the radar so bright and you are mischaracterizing information. You're literally lying. That's when the company wants to come down hard, because it ruins the integrity of the platform as a whole. So I wasn't surprised when they started booting people off, but it's only when they get to a certain level. You and I could probably say all kinds of stuff. Yeah, right. I've got, for instance, I could say I've got UFOs landing in my backyard on the regular, and nobody would care. Nobody would really believe me. Maybe a couple of people would follow me on Twitter, but it's virtually meaningless. And you have to understand that going into Twitter, it's a public company in terms of shares, but it's private real estate. This is not something where you can go in and claim that your rights are being violated in terms of free speech, because free speech is a control on government, not on individual people, and particularly not in their house. If you come into my house and you start ranting and raving like a lunatic, I'm going to ask you to leave. Well, that's what Twitter did. And it's not a public square, much to Musk's dismay. So they would poison pill the shares, but I think that it's not going to happen anyway. Yeah. And they do. It's because they have an incorrect understanding of what, in the United States, freedom of speech is a control on government. Different countries have different rules, regulations regarding public speech. So I can't say that it's like that for everybody. But I'll continue on unless you all want to talk about it more. The next article is in the Word and Tech channel. Ancient Nubian stone could hold key to future quantum computers. If you've never looked at what quantum computing is, it's pretty wild, way above my pay grade. But I have looked into it over the years in terms of the research and what is happening. But it says here, a special form of light made using an ancient Nubian gemstone could be the key to new light-based quantum computers, which could solve long-held scientific mysteries, according to new research led by the University of St. Andrews. So I'll click that link, take us over to it, and that's what this Nubian stone looks like. So it's actually a crystal, but it's embedded in a stone matrix. It's over at phys.org is the article, and the article is published on phys.org, but it's constructed by University of St. Andrews. So here it says, the research conducted in collaboration with scientists at Harvard University in the US and Macquarie University in Australia and Aarhus University in Denmark, and published in the Nature Materials research. It's basically a research anthology. Use the naturally mined cuprous oxide, which I've never even heard of cuprous oxide, gemstone from Namibia, to produce Rydberg polaritons, the largest hybrid particles of light and matter ever created. So I understand uh, a lot of that as individual segments, but I'm not sure how all of this would play out. But the purpose of quantum computers right now is to be deployed on very elaborate but specific mathematical problems to extract from a massive amount of data, either an ultimate high or low or some piece of data within the data set. Typically, it's not really complex programming. It's not going to play a game. It's not going to allow you to stream at 25,000 terabytes per second and get 16K video. But it all is formed around quantum bits, which is an interesting concept, because you don't know what a quantum bit is until it's observed, and then the moment it's observed is when it's determined if it's a 0 or a 1. And so this article is going to go into greater detail about it, but I thought it was interesting that we are talking about a crystal in a stone matrix that has the ability to perhaps be the key to quantum computers. Rydberg polaritons? You think you're out of your depth? You know what? We have the world's knowledge at our fingertips. When I first started using the internet, I was actually on a military base in California, and I was 10. And I used a 110 baud acoustic coupled modem and ended up talking with somebody in a university via a chat. Basically, it was chat. It wasn't called IRC then, but it was the first time I ever had a communication with somebody in another country while I was here in the States. And it grabbed me, and I've never let go of this idea that we are so much more alike until we start putting up the barriers. And now I'm dealing with that on the regular, that everybody is trying to create these social groups around, skin or politics or money or all kinds of things. It's the natural social paradigm, except that online, we're all the same. We're all ones and zeros until we start separating ourselves from each other. So this is a neat piece of possibly future history, all because somebody is out there doing fundamental research. I think it's amazing stuff that people are doing. Okay, so this next article is the opening of the Apollo 17 core sample that's been vacuum sealed since 1972. I'm going to click this link and it'll take us over to phys.org. This article is put together by the European Space Agency. And it says here, Francesca McDonald, science and project lead of ESA's contribution to Apollo's next generation sample analysis program, is pictured at the center of the picture that you see up there. And if you're in the podcast listening to this, sorry, you're not going to be able to see a picture. I'm not that good. But it says here, is pictured at the center of this image with the piercing tool, which contains a pristine sample. So they're puncturing this sealed Apollo 17 sample container and getting, it says here, the tool forms part of a gas sampling system with a gas extraction manifold designed and built by Washington University, St. Louis. Pretty interesting stuff here, and I'm sure that this will be years of research in the making. It says this was successfully done in February 2022 with the fragile gases that then collected in dedicated canisters via an extraction manifold designed by a partner team. So now they're going to be analyzing the gases that are coming out of this sample. Not sure what will come of it, but if you want to know more about it, then follow that link and it'll take you. Just click the visit the source link once you are on ohmTown. So I'm going to kind of hurry and play catch up because I'm running behind. The next article is in the Word in Tech. And it says, do mushrooms really use language to talk to each other? A fungi expert. Sorry, there's a joke there. He's a fun guy that investigates fungi. And it says here, nearly all of Earth's organisms communicate with each other in one way or another. From nods and dances and squeaks and bellows of animals through to the invisible chemicals emitted by plant leaves and roots. Let's see. Timeless says, as a species, we do seem like creating little cliques even when not needed. I know it's very difficult, different to what you were chatting about, but there are almost battle lines drawn on rolls in OW. I'm not sure what is OW. Sorry for the silence. There's a lag, so unfortunately. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll be heading over there as soon as I'm done here. So thanks for stopping by. I'll see you tonight. Ciao. Oh, Overwatch. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Yeah, clicks happen everywhere. It's pretty standard. Yep. So I'll see you as soon as I'm done here, as a matter of fact. Have fun. So this mushroom language, right? It is something that we as animals and plants do the same. We all release something either in times of stress or times of happiness. And we as humans do it too, but we have a harder time discerning it in a conscious level. Sometimes we can actually detect it, but it isn't something at the same level as the more, I don't know how to describe it other than the more basic level that plants and animals, it's more instinctive for animals, and it's virtually unknown for between plants, but we know that they emit both. There's supposedly there's some research now that says that they even vibrate, and that they feel, not feel, I don't want to anthropomorphize a plant too much, but they suffer when you clip them. They actually respond negatively when you like cut a leaf or break a branch or something like that. It's pretty fascinating. So this article is over at phys.org as well. It's written by Katie Field from The Conversation. And it says here, new research by computer scientist Andrew Adamaski at the Unconventional Computing Laboratory of the University of the West of England suggests that ancient kingdom mushrooms, or fungi, I should say, has an electrical language all its own, far more complicated than anyone previously thought. According to the study, fungi might even use words to form sentences to communicate with neighbors. Well, I would not be surprised. We, as human beings, are electromagnetic as well. We have electrical impulses that are generated at the atomic level, right? We have proton exchanges. We have energy that's created, that it's almost meme like when you say it. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but it's ions that are being transferred, and that's why you can actually cause somebody's muscles to contract with an electrical charge, or why you can pour soy sauce on octopus when you're at a restaurant, and it'll move, because it actually stimulates a proton or an electrical charge across the fibers. It's interesting to see, kind of gross if you're not expecting it. But at any rate, there's much more at this article, so I would go over to phys.org after you follow that link there in the show notes. The next article is Elon Musk likens Mark Zuckerberg to Sun King over social media dominance. Talking at a TED conference in Vancouver, Musk accused Zuckerberg of having too much control over public debate given his ownership of Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and other social media sites. And in all of those cases, we as consumers were told that Facebook would never integrate all of those apps into one. Everything would remain siloed, but that's not what happened at all. They're all integrated, feeding back into Facebook and thus Meta. And now Meta is working on the metaverse, which is entirely integrated into everything else. To me, it's all creepy. And I love tech. I really do want something that's augmented reality, virtual reality. I want Ready Player One. I just don't want it run by Mark Zuckerberg. The next article, this article is over at The Guardian, written by Gloria Oladipo. And it says here, the Tesla chief mocks Meta CEO with comparison to King Louis XIV and promises different share ownership structure. To me, it's pot calling the kettle black. It just doesn't make any sense. It's literally just billionaires arguing it with billionaires, calling each other names. Yet the objective is still the same: increase personal wealth and power and influence, and walk by the homeless person. So it says, of his potential ownership, Musk has said that he wants to keep the maximum number of shareholders when he takes Twitter private after spending $43 billion. Yeah, I'm not sure about this. This is basically just marketing, staying in the media. The next article is in the Stock Marketeers channel, financial crime. Couple built investors out of $5 million after claiming they invented software to rival Microsoft that one employee called a heap of junk. Michael and Betsy Feinberg took $5 million from investors over 15 years by representing or repeatedly claiming to be on the verge of a breakthrough. This is an article over at MarketWatch, and it was first published April 11th. I didn't talk about it then, but it was republished with updates on April 15th. And $5 million is really nothing over that span of time. So they must have really irritated somebody of great wealth, because $5 million, arguably, for a product that can compete with Microsoft, yeah, that's nothing. The Feinbergs managed to dupe hundreds of investors out of approximately $5 million, running the same con over and over again between 1997 and 2013, prosecutors said. Meanwhile, employees working on V-Delta said the technology was little more than a heap of junk. Well, these master criminals were finally brought down at age 73 and 80. And they were convicted by a jury of conspiracy to commit securities fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and securities fraud, and they were set to be sentenced in June. Yeah, they must have irritated somebody. But anyway, if you want to know more about it, head over to MarketWatch. The next article is Epic Games raises $2 billion to further expand its metaverse ambitions. I've spoken about metaverse a few times. I love the idea. I just don't like that it's being led by somebody that has abused the ability to obtain information, particularly manipulating their emotional state and the amount of information that's being gathered, and just outright historical issues with Facebook. I just don't like the idea of it. But anyway, it says here, nearly a year after its stunning $1 billion raise, Epic has secured dual $1 billion investments from Sony Group Corporation and Kirkby, I guess it is, KIRKBI, the holding and investment company behind the Lego Group. Wow, that is a ton of money from the Lego Group, but the Lego Group has a lot of money. Those bricks aren't cheap. Sony has become somewhat of a serial investor in Epic. In 2020, Sony invested $250 million in Epic with the goal of creating real-time 3D social experiences, leading to a convergence of gaming, film, and music. Let's click this link. It'll take us over to Road to VR, which, if you are into VR and AR, is a great source for information. The article was written by Scott Hayden, and goes into greater detail about this project. Not too much deeper, but it says here, Epic says it will continue to have a single class of common stock and remains controlled by its CEO and founder, Tim Sweeney. This brings Epic's post-money equity valuation to $31.5 billion. It's a lot of money, y'all. I'll continue on, though, get through all of these articles, and let y'all go about your day. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel, why Taco Bell took Mexican pizza off the menu. I'm only asking the most important questions here, folks. Taco Bell took the Mexican pizza off menus in 2020 as it simplified its offering. Some fans have been asking the chain to bring it back. Executives hinted that it may come back at some point, and a recent Doja Cat collaboration gave fans hope. Taco Bell fans have been pining for the return since 2020. So let's click this link. It'll take us over to Business Insider, and Mary Meisenzahl, I don't know how to pronounce that. Meisenzahl, there you go, is the author, Mary Meisenzahl. So yeah, they simplified their menu and took certain things off of it. I've got coworkers that lost their mind, maybe, and you know who you are, and got very upset about some of these things leaving the Taco Bell menu. Anyway, so let's see what else. I don't know if there's anything that really says why. The the title hints at it, but it doesn't say exactly why. As far as I know, it was removed because they wanted to focus on other things that maximize their supply line in a different way. So I don't know. I mean, this thing seems like it's pretty easy to build the bulk of it, like any other frozen anything, and warm it up. It's easier though to build it without being pre-made. You just have the tortillas and you make your little Mexican pizza. I dig it. I don't think I've had one in a long time, like decades. So the next article is inside Algrano Green Coffee Market Trends 2022's report. We're going to click the link. I'm just going to send you over there. This is over at dailycoffeenews.com, written by Nick Brown. If you are interested in coffee, then I would suggest you go over to Daily Coffee News. It also calls for collective action in the coffee sector to address the decades-long period of coffee price volatility. Good luck with that. There is a volatility all over the place, and if demand continues to increase for coffee, you're going to get more of it as people compete for better pricing. Everybody can expect to increase their prices. While competition sometimes drives prices down, supply and demand are at odds with a constrained number of suppliers and places. So I don't suspect that coffee prices will ever reduce, and it will remain volatile. So the next article is will China's zero COVID policy bring the world's factory grinding to a halt? Yes, it will continue to do that. It says here, if Shanghai cannot resume production by May, all of the tech and industrial players who have supply chains in the area will come to a complete halt, especially the automotive industry, said Richard Yu Chengdong, head of Huawei's consumer and auto division, and they said in a WeChat post. That will pose severe consequences and massive losses for the whole industry. If everybody is suffering at the same rate, I know that I'm oversimplifying it when I talk about this, but we're all burdened by COVID. And if production stops, it doesn't mean really losses because you're not making sales. It's kind of like people that have, and although I don't necessarily agree with it, they are true when you become pedantic about it. If somebody steals a song, it's a digital embodiment. And because you can make unlimited number of digital embodiments of a song, nobody's stealing anything because theft is actually taking the ability to consume away, taking a product, taking your car, that's theft. But ripping a copy of a song isn't theft. That's the argument that people make. Well, in this, if everybody can't get supplies, you're not making any sales, so you're not losing sales. I understand that you're going to have to pay people still, or let them go. But that's kind of the cart before the horse. If you can't afford to be an ongoing concern because you've been overextended, then that is what happens in business. It happens with people personally as well. Do I blame anybody anywhere? No. Do I blame anybody anywhere for this because of COVID? Absolutely not. There's no way that you can sock away 2+ years worth of wealth to bear this weight as a single person or as a business. But this is what's going on. It's not massive losses. It's just no sales. It's a different animal, subtle but distinct difference. That said, a lot of this should be automated by now. Production of products, even taking them off the boat and putting them onto 18-wheelers, and the 18-wheelers themselves by now should be automated, but it's not. And that's a whole other conversation if you want to talk about it. This article is over at theguardian.com, written by Vincent Ni, from China Affairs correspondent. Again, the title is, will China's zero COVID policy bring the world's factory grinding to a halt? I can answer that, yes. The next article is in the mobile channel. It says, we must develop drugs much faster in the next pandemic. This is by Bill Gates. The more rapidly we're able to produce safe, effective drugs for quick spreading pathogens like the coronavirus, the more lives we can save. You click that, and all this is doing is feeding the conspiracy. I can be colorful, but I will not. The woo-woo conspiracy theorists that are saying that everything about the COVID-19 virus is a way for Bill Gates to implant us with microtransmitters and whatever. It's all cuckoo. Anyway, it says, in the early days of the pandemic, I expected a treatment to come along well before any vaccines were available. I wasn't alone. Most people I know in the public health community felt the same way. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Safe, effective COVID vaccines were available within a year, a historic feat, but treatments that could keep large numbers of people out of the hospital were surprisingly slow out of the gate. So this is an article over at the New York Times by Bill Gates. If you want to read all of it, I suggest you go over to New York Times, and you can follow the link in the show notes. And I've got one more article, and that is in the Word in Tech. The title of this article is Direct Synthesis of Isoparaffin-Rich Gasoline from Syngas. So a research team led by Professor Pan Zhuolian and Professor Bao, I think it's Jin He, from the Dalian Institute of Chemical Physics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences realized the direct synthesis of isoparaffin-rich gasoline from syngas using it's a oxide zeolite catalyst. I can't, it's not a word right there. If you're watching this, it's a chemical makeup of what is being used to synthesize this gas, or this isoparaffin rich gas. So it says here, the research team realized the direct synthesis of isoparaffin rich gasoline from syngas. Previously, the DICP team proposed a new catalyst concept based on metal oxide bifunctional catalysts, and it enabled the direct conversion of syngas to a variety of chemicals and fuels with high selectivity, such as light olefins, ethylene, gasoline, aromatics, and oxygenates. So let's see. In the study, they achieved 34% CO conversion and 82% gasoline selectivity by modulating the acid site distribution of zeolite. Let's see. Oh, pardon me. By optimizing the reaction conditions, they increased the ratio of iso N paraffins as high as 48. So let me check something real quick. Yeah, this is the last article. So yeah, I can't find the previous conversion level. Anyway, being able to make synthetic gas and finding alternative sources for the creation would be spectacular, because depending on the research that you read about and the people that are making this call, we've been past peak gas for peak oil for some time. Gasoline comes from oil. It's going to get more and more expensive. Either we switch to something that is renewable, like sun or solar, wind, or geothermal. We're not going to be able to do geothermal with a car, and we're not going to be able to do wind with a car, but we can certainly do solar. But if we can synthesize our own gas from some other material and not have to get it from oil, it may be better off for the planet, particularly if it's efficient enough that we can capture the exhaust on the other side and prevent it from creating a larger carbon footprint than it needs to be. At any rate, it'll take too long for me to find more information about this right now, but I'm happy to go and look into it. And as I do at the end of every episode, I bring you back to the front page. I've been working on this again, so hopefully I don't break it when I hit the next button. And there you go, a whole new set of additional information. My aggregator runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Feel free to go over to ohmTown.com and either just consume or sign up and become a citizen of ohmTown. That would be tremendous. Don't forget to like that up there. Please follow me. I need that. Me as a nascent streamer, only doing this for the last 105 days. I've kind of noodled around with it periodically in the past, but I really want to make this happen. So please click that follow button so that I know that you're out there, because the chat users list certainly is not telling me the truth. There are times where there are 20 people in here, and I find out later that there's only 2, and whatever. Anyway, it would be great if you go out and you tell people that I'm here talking about the news, not deep into politics. There's other channels that do that, but it's more a holistic look at news in various sectors over the last 24 hours. And I do it daily. Right now it's at 11 p.m. In the future, I think that I might be pulling it into the middle of the day, 11 a.m. and going from there. But I've got big plans. I just need to see if it's something that I can do. If this is entertaining and fun, I'll keep going. But I'm having fun doing it right now. And I throw it out to YouTube. I throw it out to Apple Podcasts and to Google Play Podcasts and to Spotify. And eventually anywhere you're looking for pods and breaking out your podcast, or I don't know. Anyway, trying to be funny, but it's past midnight. Okay. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow, 11 p.m. Bye-bye.